Well, as we were telling you, a new face has entered the crowded field of Democrats pushing to be our state's next governor.
San Jose Mayor Matt Mahan is hoping to stand out with his more centrist views and a track record tackling homelessness and crime in San Jose, issues that continue to be a problem statewide. And he joins us now again via Zoom to talk about his campaign. Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So we're obviously down here in SoCal, but you're largely known up in the Bay. How will you appeal to voters in other parts of the state?
Well, I'm spending a lot of time in Southern California. I was just there a couple of weeks ago at Full Stack Modular, looking at the future of home building as we can build houses in an industrial factory method and bring down costs by 20-30% to make housing more affordable to working families. I'll be back down in LA later in the week for a couple of days, really looking forward to the events we're starting to line up. As mayor of a big city, I think we have many challenges in common, but I'm excited to listen and learn and really understand how, as governor, I can help LA, San Diego, all of our cities and communities in Southern California deliver results in the areas I've been focused on in San Jose: improving public safety, ending unsheltered homelessness, building more housing, growing our base of jobs. And I really think we can do better if we hold government more accountable.
Yeah, you brought up affordable housing and some of the issues that you want to tackle. I think some would say, okay, you were able to do that for San Jose. Doing that for the state is a much, of course, larger issue. How are you confident knowing you could do what you've done in San Jose for the entire state?
Well, I lead the largest city in Northern California, and when I came into office, by a 2-to-1 ratio, people felt we were heading in the wrong direction. And we really had to look in the mirror and say, what are we going to do to be more accountable at City Hall for delivering the outcomes people care about? At the end of the day, people care a lot more about the outcomes they experience every day when they step out of their front door than most of what we discuss and debate in politics. And so we focused. We said we're going to set goals around a few foundational things and hold ourselves accountable to implementing practical solutions. So we've reduced crime by over 20% through community policing and the smart use of technology. We reduced the number of people living outside in tents by about a third, thanks to investments in interim housing and better outreach methods. And I believe the state of California should be helping every city and county stand up basic shelter, basic indoor treatment, inpatient treatment options. And when they're available, we should require that people come indoors and get access to life-saving services. We're doing that in San Jose, and we're leading the state in reducing unsheltered homelessness. So I don't want to pretend I have all the answers to every issue, but I can tell you on the core issues of safety, homelessness, education. I'm a former public school teacher. When we set goals, measure, and hold ourselves accountable, we get some of the ideological and partisan politics out of the way and actually offer real solutions and move forward. And that's what I want to bring to Sacramento.
Now, initially you said you were not going to run. Now you are. What changed your mind?
Yeah, well, my wife and I are raising little kids. We love our day jobs. I really, for a long time, resisted the call to jump into this race. But frankly, I was listening to the debate. I met with most of the candidates, and I felt something was missing in the discussion. As a current big city mayor, largest city in Northern California, that's actually, my team and I and my colleagues are on the front lines of reducing homelessness, reducing crime, working with our police chief, working to get housing built. I didn't hear anyone in the race who had that practical, hands-on, current experience. And so I didn't feel that they were offering the solutions that we need. We can further reduce unsheltered homelessness if we build treatment, including sober living environments, which unfortunately Sacramento failed to pass last year. And we create some accountability for coming indoors and getting access to life-saving treatment. I believe there are real practical solutions. And as a mayor who's in the trenches every day working on these issues, I think I have a perspective that's a little closer to the problems and the solutions that we need.
Interesting. Okay, still early in this race and you just jumped in, but I do want to give you an opportunity to respond to some criticism. One of the biggest pieces I've seen about you is that people say you're running as a Democrat, but that a lot of your policies are conservative. How do you respond to that?
Well, I don't find that to be true, but I also think these labels of liberal and conservative oversimplify far too much. What I'm interested in is outcomes, and I think there's a real problem in our politics when we simply have these binaries of a red team and a blue team. And if an idea comes from the other side, it obviously is wrong, and maybe even worse, it's immoral. I want to focus on outcomes. I have very progressive goals. I grew up in a working class community. My dad was in a labor union, which is the reason we had health insurance. I was a public school teacher. I have very progressive goals, but I think we have to pursue pragmatic means for delivering better schools, safer neighborhoods, more affordable housing. We can't just be rooted in ideology and wishful thinking. As a mayor, I'm accountable. Every day I go to the grocery store or the gas station, people stop me and want to tell me about what's going on in their neighborhood. So I just try to focus on how do we actually deliver progressive outcomes, which may require very pragmatic means. And I don't think that any side has a monopoly on the truth, frankly.
All right, Mayor Mahan, thank you so much for joining us. We hope you'll join us again as this race continues.
Would love to. Thanks for the time.
All right.